Okay, so we're back with part 4 of the 2023 Everything tier list. For this installment, we're going over the shit I read. The VNs. The books. The one manga. Because, I was supposed to read One Piece. I didn't. I was interested in reading Dora. I also didn't. I did read a few chapters of some things, like I got caught up on Talentless Nana, My Hero, stayed caught up on Chainsaw Man, but the bulk of those manga were read in other years, so for me, that doesn't really count. And if you've noticed a couple things, number one, for Fate, I have all 3 routes here, but for Seacats and for Muv-Luv the Day After, I do not. My reason for that is this is telling a unified story. You can make an argument about episode 0 because it is kind of like its own prologue. And this... Oh, excuse me. Sorry, my throat's getting kind of dry. My allergies have actually been fucking me up today. My mouth is like kind of weirdy. My eye has been super fucked up. I actually tried recording earlier. I recorded for about 18, 19 minutes. And then I was like, dude, I can't do this anymore. Like, I cannot keep my eyes open. Not because I'm tired, but, like, it's so fucked up. So I took a break. Tried to heal up, I guess. And I feel better. I can keep my eye consistently open, so we take that. But, Seacats, even with the way it's told, is still one consistent narrative. This, and this, to me, feel like they are 3 separate stories. Here are 3 different ways this narrative could have played out, which, again, is kind of similar to Seacats, but these all come together and are connective to form a bigger picture. These 3 are completely independent of each other, so I feel like I can evaluate them separately, whereas this I really can't. And with Class of 09, they are just 2 separate games. The other thing I wanted to say is about the tiers themselves. Because you might notice there's a couple missing. I don't have a bottom of the fucking barrel. I don't have an F tier for any of these. The D tier is here because it's here by default. I don't know if I have one. I don't even know if I have a C tier. I really liked all of the... Okay, maybe not all of these. But even then, it's the ones I didn't read. They have a tier all their own. So let's go ahead and give my explanation of the tiers. Starting from the bottom, the Snoop Dogg tier list. Or, excuse me, just the Snoop Dogg tier. For things that I dropped like they were hot. For things that I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. Some of them, I specifically want to go back to. I stopped because I wasn't super feeling it, with the intention of going back to it later. Others, I just fucking dropped, man. I was like, I don't really care anymore. I don't want to go back to this. I think we're done. D and C, I always refer to these as the twins. These are the mid-twins. C is for something that I'm more neutral toward. D is something I think is more like actively mediocre or disappointing. For me, the B tier is something that I respect a bit more than I actually like it. And A is... Fuck, I need to get a drink of water. Fuck. A tier is something I actually really like. This is something that I gush about, as I sometimes say. It's like, if something is the A tier, it means I kind of have like a crush on it. S tier means of what we're talking about, so 2023 reading list, I can make an argument that this is my favorite. And the double S, this is the king. This is my favorite thing that I read this year. There might be a few double S's, might be like, this is my favorite VN, this is my favorite book. I guess Monster being the only manga gets this by default of being the best manga I read this year. But, I think that's it. I think that's the explanation. And as always, I like to, at least when I'm doing solo lists, I like to kind of put whatever I'm talking about in about the middle of the screen. So we start here with Class of 09. my exposure to Class of '09 was the Wrath Club anime. It's a few minutes. I watched it, was really entertained, and just kind of wanted to know, what is this and where can I get more of it? Was this like a one-off animated project? Is this part of a larger whole? Is it an adaptation of something? Cool, it's an adaptation of a VN. Fuck it, let's look into the VN. So that day, after Clay and I watched the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, I bought both OG 09 and the re-up, played through the original that night, 100%ed it, and then over the course of the rest of the weekend, finished the re-up. I have talked about it before on the channel. I think I have like a 2-hour video talking about how much I like it. There's been, I know I've referenced it several times in other videos. I've quoted it endlessly to my friends. I have been trying to get a lot of my friends into it. I did support the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter met its stretch goal of getting an 11-minute episode, and I'm really excited for it. Unfortunately, it did not meet the stretch goal for a 30-minute episode, or for the development of a third game. Maybe I could get a third game someday. I would love it. But let's actually talk about this deranged, fucked up, out of pocket, insane bullshit. What I love about Class of '09 is, despite all the insanity, despite storylines about getting out of your civics homework by selling crack, despite even like with beyond the storylines of the photography teacher who kind of looks like Albert Einstein being a white nationalist and taking over the school, and multiple endings with how that wild shit can go. Class of '09, it's a, I don't know if I'd quite say it's a character study, but it is a story about a fundamentally broken young woman, and that being Nicole. Nicole is someone who had no power for most of her life. Her mom was constantly getting married and divorced, which led to her moving, having to make new friends, go to a new school, move again, etc., etc., etc. Finally, she was able to be somewhere for a few years, put her roots down, and found friends that she liked, school that she liked, and everything was Gucci. Till Mama got divorced again. And Nicole said, you know what? No. I'm not moving. Sorry, I just remembered the script song. I'm not moving. I'm not moving. Anyway, she's like, no, I'm not moving. I'm not leaving. Dad lives like a couple blocks from here. I can live with him. I don't want to move again. I want to stay here in this town. I want to stay here in this school. I want to stay with my friends. I'll see ya. So she goes to her dad to talk to him about, I want to stay here. Can we do this? How do we work it out? And then she hears the gunshot and sees all the blood. Posted to the fridge via a Cookie Monster refrigerator magnet. And I definitely got a good laugh just when she explicitly pointed out the refrigerator magnet. I was like, fuck damn it. I don't want to laugh in this situation, but that made me laugh. It was pretty funny. She does find her dad's suicide note that says simply Nicole's fault. And I feel like this event is what fundamentally broke her. Seeing such an awful thing, being blamed for it, and having no explanation as to why, and no closure for it. And that being the one time she really tried to stand up for herself and take control of her life, I feel like something snapped. Nicole does not care about consequences anymore. And I think part of it is, it can't get worse than this. I'm gonna, like, you know that South Park episode where Cartman, whatever, I do what I want? That's Nicole. It is whatever. I'm gonna do what I want. If someone is annoying me, I'm gonna treat them like shit. Because what are they gonna do about it? You know, this teacher's assistant is kind of getting on my nerves. So you know what I'm gonna do to get back on her, or to get back at her? I am gonna play the long game to get her boyfriend to cheat on her with me without actually touching him because, ew, he's disgusting. But I am gonna do this to thoroughly fuck up their relationship and mentally break her so she can't trust people anymore. Because I find her a little insufferable. That's Nicole. That's awful. It is sincerely awful. There is so much disproportionate retribution, particularly here in Re-Up. And yet, as much as I watch this and think, you are so fucking awful, there's still someone to sympathize with. Now, that does not mean I think Nicole is blameless. No. Hell no. That does not mean I think she is a wholly sympathetic character. But there is enough there. Especially at the end of the OG game, when you get all the endings, and she has that final conversation with Jeffrey. I feel like, yeah, there's... As insane as these games are, as fucking funny as these games are, there's... I don't want to say it. There is this genuine human core to the whole story. And I think if it wasn't there, and if it was just, yeah, this is insane, fucked up, out-of-pocket shit, I would enjoy it. I'd have a good time with it. I'd maybe keep it about the B tier. Maybe I'd put them up in A. And I will say, between the two games, I don't have a preference. I like them both equally. There's some things in Re-Up I enjoy a little bit more here, and some things here I enjoy a little bit more here. But I feel like in addition to how insane it is, in addition to its audacity, that genuine human core at the center of it, I gotta put him where I'm gonna put him, man. I love Class of 09. I said it earlier. I can't wait for the anime to come out. I have no idea if that's gonna be this year. I don't think so, because my understanding about animation is it takes a really fucking long time to make shit. So I'm not anticipating it. But if it does come out, I'm gonna watch it. I've mentioned that if I can, I might try to do like a live reaction to it, because that sounds so fun. Going like, alright, completely blind, let's watch Class of 09. And, oh, that sounds amazing. Speaking of amazing shit, boy, I fucking love House of Leaves. House of Leaves is a book that's been on my radar for quite a long time. I've heard about the book. I've heard about how weird it is, how weird the formatting is, how there's parts that are just like, yeah, you don't read it from left to right. Sometimes you just read one thing on a sentence. Sometimes it spirals around. Sometimes you need a fucking mirror to be able to read what's actually going on. It's blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that sounds really cool. I love books. I love reading. I should check this out. Then law school happened. And something I've talked to with a lot of my friends from law school is like, yeah, you don't really read for pleasure anymore after law school. It just kind of breaks you that way. And it's kind of fitting, because this, I think, was the first book I've read since law school. Now, I've listened to some ebooks, like I listened to I can't say last year, because technically last year is 2023, but in 2022, I listened to The Count of Monte Cristo, and it was fantastic. I was so happy to finally experience that story. I have it on my shelf, I have the book, but there was some kind of mental block that kept me from actually reading. And reading House of Leaves This is kind of what got me out of that funk. It's what allowed me to read an actual fucking book this year. And this one too, I actually finished. I don't know. I don't know if it was because of how weird it was. Like, if I needed something so interesting to break me out of my funk. If it's because I needed something that could only truly be a written work that made me get back into written works. I don't know. Here's what I do know. The Navidson record is a really interesting story. And my favorite character is not in it. Because my favorite character is the writer. It's Zimpano. Because those bits of, like, insight into his character, into his life, with what he'll talk about, the way he'll talk about something, the shit that can be crossed out, the fact that everything he wrote is bullshit, maybe, probably, I don't know, is great. By far, though, my favorite scene of the novel is when Navidson himself is... It's when he's in the house and he's by himself and he's reading a book. I don't want to go into any specific spoilers here. I've done it in my House of Leaves video. If you've read the book, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you've seen that video, you also probably know what I'm talking about. It was so, like, mind-bending and really fucking cool. And I remember reading it and I was like, okay, I've got a theory about what this could represent and mean. I have a theory. Here's another theory about what it could mean. For me, when it comes to things like bigger themes and symbolism, I don't tend to like it when it's too much or too in my face. Like, for me, when a story is focusing more on, like, its bigger symbols and whatnot, rather than telling the story, I find it kind of pretentious. What I want is to get engrossed in a story, engrossed in the characters, engrossed in the setting, because the more I care and the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm gonna wonder those things. Like, holy shit, how is any of this stuff in the Navidson record happening? Is any of the stuff in the Navidson record happening? What do I think of Navidson? Are Navidson and Zimpano the same person? Probably not, but maybe, and here's the argument I can make for that. Here's the argument I can make about this, or about this, or about this, and I love that feeling. I loved the feeling of holding a fucking book in my hand and going, I can't put this down. It had been a long, long time since I felt that. You know where it's going. Like I said, this is going to be a really high tier list. This ain't graded on a curve where I can only give out so many S's. This, I mean, not everything is going to end in the S tier, but you know what? We might get close to it because, damn, a lot of it is really fucking deserving. So now we get to talk about Fate Stay Night. The Fate Route, UBW, and Heaven's Feel. Starting, of course, with the Fate Route, with Saber's Route. I have been wanting to read Fate Stay Night for at least 10 years now. Probably a bit longer than that. I've watched the Dune anime, and I had my problems with it, but I really liked it. I thought the concept for the Grail War was one of, like, the single best concepts I'd ever heard for a story. I think Fate Zero is neat as fuck. I watched the Unlimited Blade Works anime, and for the first season and a half, I'm like, this is so good! And then the last few episodes, I was like, this lost me. It's really, really lost me. But you know what? I've heard the source material is fantastic. That a lot of the problems I have here and a lot of the problems I had here. I watched the first two Heaven's Feel movies when they came out, and I didn't remember them super well, but I remember liking them, so it's not that I had a lot of problems with it. But I was like, from what I understand, most of my problems, if not all of them, will be addressed and fixed from reading the VN, and I finally fucking did it. And if you've heard me talk about Fate Stay Night since, you know that I think that's 100% accurate. Shiro Emiya went from being a bottom of the fucking barrel tier character, because I just fucking hated Shiro in any adaptation, to being my double... I mean, if I'm going to represent Shiro, it would be with Unlimited Blade Works, I think. He's my double S character in Fate. I mean, I still love Tamamo. Tamamo is a special place in my heart. And there's other characters I fucking love. I love Ilya, I love Gilgamesh, I love Rin, Kira, etc., etc. Shiro became my favorite character. And what do you know? All it took was reading the source material. All it took was reading how his actual creator wrote him, with some translator translations, of course, for me to really understand him and think he's fantastic. As a whole, Fate Stay Night is, Fate as a whole, I'd probably use that. Like, it's an S tier. There's an argument for Fate Stay Night as a whole to be up here. But if we're going route by route, there are going to be some different things. The Fate route, Saber's route, I think it's okay. And I think that's by design. It is specifically billed as, this is meant to be your introduction into Fate, into the Grail War, into all this kind of shit. So the story is not as complex, I feel like, as the other routes. The actual Grail War itself is a lot less intense. There's a lot less strategy. There's a lot less backstabbing. Caster's barely in it. Like, she shows up at one point, is trying to do some cool shit, and then Gilgamesh makes his appearance. And fuck, that's one of my favorite scenes in the VN. That is incredible. I think it's a good introduction. I think it does a job very well of being an introduction into Fate. It's a good introduction into Shiro Emiya. It does do some interesting stuff with him. But I didn't quite love Shiro in the Fate route. I liked him. I feel like I'm liking him and getting into his headspace better than I have with the other anime. I don't quite love it, but I like it quite a bit. I kind of go back and forth on where I would rank it. Like, I can't put it up here. I could say it's maybe an A tier. I could say it's maybe a B tier. I don't think I would go quite so low as a C tier. I think for me, the original Fate route... come on, Lone Blamers. I think I would put it about here-ish. Maybe up here on, like, a good day. And I got my allergies. This isn't the best day. UBW. I was really excited and really nervous about reading UBW. Because like I said, that first season and a half of the anime I thought was phenomenal. I loved all the strategy. I loved all the crazy bullshit that was going on. I loved seeing Rin have a fucking servant and be able to do shit. I loved Archer actually having a character. I mean, he has one, don't get me wrong, but you don't see much of him in the Dune animes. Like, this guy's kind of cool, but I don't know anything about him. And then in the UBW route, I'm like, oh my god, he's like the main servant, and this guy's really cool and really interesting. But his fight with Shiro and his conflict with Shiro, it's like, I get the idea, but I found the execution in the anime really irritating. I felt like the conversations they had were very cyclical, and it came down to Shiro saying, fuck you, I will never agree with you, and Archer saying, fuck you, I will never agree with you, and then after a while, Archer saying, you know what, I've changed my mind. And as like this fight was so long, and it was so visually boring, and I feel like it was supposed to be, like, emotionally cathartic, but it just didn't work. And I hope the VN fixes that. I really do, because I feel like this could be great. It just didn't work. Boy, does the DM... let me slide into these fate DMs. Let me slide into Tomomo's DMs real quick. The VN fucking delivers on it, man. The fight between Shiro and Archer is one of my 2 favorite scenes in the entire VN. The other being Sparks Liner High. And I kind of go back and forth. At the time I finished Fate, I was like, I think it's the Shiro Archer fight. Now I'm a bit more like, as much as I fucking love the Shiro Archer fight, Sparks is so phenomenal. I think Sparks is my favorite scene in the VN. For me, Unlimited Blade Works is not perfect. There are things I don't super care for. Trying to remember. There are things I don't really care for. Fuck, what are they? I think for me, number 1, it's the just sheer lack of Kirei. Kirei isn't in here very long, but he gets to be the final boss. Here, Kirei is a focal point, and he's great. He doesn't do much in UBW. And when he does, I'm like, I know Kirei's a fucking asshole. But they just make him an asshole. Like, there's nothing... It doesn't feel as satisfying as it does here with just, like, he's the final boss. It just kind of feels right, given his history with Kiritsugu. Or here, where he's such a fucking interesting character. I don't care for how Kirei is done here. I don't mind what they do with Ilya, although it breaks my heart. Castor actually gets to do shit. Lancer actually gets to do shit. My boy Assassin is just, like, forgotten for most of the route, which is honestly just kind of funny. Like, when they have to go find Assassin, they're like, oh shit, we kind of completely forgot that you were here. Whoops. Which makes Saber's whole thing in the climax of, like, alright, I have to duel Assassin. Like, this kind of has no weight to it compared to finishing your fight with Gilgamesh in part 1, or the shit that happens here. I mean, her fight with Ryder, I don't give a shit about. I really don't. I don't like Ryder. Ryder does nothing for me. But the Shiro Saber fight? Sparks? Saber does get, like, I think 2 of Saber's climax, almost like 2.5 are really good. This is the one that isn't. This is the route that focuses the most on Rin, and I love Rin. I think she is my favorite of the 3 heroines. And on the one hand, I really enjoy her being able to say, I am participating in an honest-to-God Grail War, I've got my servant, let's fucking go, and seeing her haul ass and kick ass. My problem is there's a lot of emphasis on her more tsundere tendencies, which I don't like. When she treats Shiro like shit, because she is an actual experienced magus, and is like, this guy is a novice, and I'm infuriated that I am dealing with someone I am genuinely better than him. I enjoy that. I think it's funny. I like her frustration. When it's, I don't actually like you, you idiot. I don't find it that interesting. I find it kind of annoying. I honestly think Rin is probably at her best here in Heaven's Feel. But man, the good shit is just so good. The fights are fantastic. There's so many. All the shit that Castor gets up to is so interesting. Ilya and Berserker are barely in it, but when they are, they steal the fucking show. This is Gilgamesh's route. I mean, you get a lot of Gil in here. Gil steals the show, and it's amazing. I kind of go back and forth on, do I think Shiro is better here, or if Shiro is better here? What I think is really interesting is the Fate route, to me, is the introduction of Shiro Emiya. This is the deep dive into Shiro Emiya's psyche. And this is essentially the trial of Shiro Emiya. It's like, now that you understand his mindset, and you truly understand his ideal, and the beauty of it with his fight with Archer, here it's going to be put to the test. And it's so, so good and so interesting. I kind of go back and forth, like, do I prefer Heaven's Feel Shiro or UBW Shiro? But they're both fantastic. Shit with Archer is great. Their fight is fantastic. It's so much better than the anime. There's that goofy-ass scene when Shiro is trying to go to school. I think he's going to give Taiga, like, her lunch. And Saber follows him to school. And Shiro's like, Saber, I'm telling you to stop. I'm telling you to go home. I don't want to go to school with a foreign girl, and because people are gonna ask questions. I don't want to do this. And Saber's response is, "You're a fucking moron. No master should step outside without their servant for 2 seconds, let alone like 2 miles or however long it is to your school. What you're saying is so dumb, so antithetical to what it means to be a master, that I know that no master would give that order. So I'm not listening to your order." Okay, Saber, do you mean I have to use the command seal? I don't know, Shiro. Are you going to waste the command seal on this? No, that's what I thought. That scene is so fucking funny. Or the 3-way date with Saber and Rin, and they're in the batting cages, and Shiro just keeps knocking him out of the park, which means he keeps beating Saber in the batting cages, and Saber doesn't want to end on a loss, so she keeps re-challenging Shiro. And Shiro realizes, if I go easy on her and let her win, she's gonna be more mad, so I have to keep trying my best, which means I keep winning, which means my arm is getting fucking tired. It's so funny. Oh, it's great. I love Unlimited Blade Works. This is definitely a contender for my favorite thing I've read this year. I'm gonna be saying that a lot. And then there's Heaven's Feel. Heaven's Feel, for me, suffers from one major problem. I love basically everything with Shiro in this route. It gives a lot of focus on Elia, who I think is my second favorite character, and a lot of that is because of Heaven's Feel. That girl made me cry, not once, not thrice, but twice while reading Heaven's Feel. Near the end of the true ending, if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about, and in Superhero, which I can't fucking talk about that ending, which is my second favorite bad ending, of course, after Sparks, which I know technically Sparks doesn't say bad end at the end of it, but it's listed with all the bad endings, so it is. Superhero is my second favorite bad ending, and the reason it's such a phenomenal bad ending is because instead of it being the result of you, the player, made Shiro do something stupid, it is you, the player, made Shiro act in character. This is truly the tragedy of Shiro Emiya, and after seeing him struggle with his identity in UBW, and struggle to not become this, here is a choice where he willingly does, and it makes sense for him to do it, and that's why it hurts. And just the way Elia talks to him, just that, fuck, I'm already tearing up. Like, I can feel it coming. Maybe it's the allergies, I don't know, but are just, I really pity you, Shiro. You have become Kiritsugu. This shit's heartbreaking. Like, fuck, man. I love it. Like I said earlier, what it does with Rin, I think is really, really good. It's not the Grail War I got here, or really the Grail War I wanted, but I think it's so fucking bizarre that I really get into it. What it does with Kirei is so good. I love this son of a bitch. But I said there's one problem. And it's Sakura. I don't like Sakura Mato. I remember when I read it, and something I've said, I know of, definitely in my Fate Stay Night video, possibly in some others as well, that I pitied her more than I liked her. And by the end of the route, I stopped pitying her. Now, don't misunderstand. That is not to say that I think, no, Sakura, you deserve everything the Matos did to you. Fuck no. Nobody deserves that. But it does mean I stop rooting for her. I stopped rooting for Sakura to have a happy ending because I just found her insufferable. I really don't like her. It's one of the reasons why I really don't like the true ending. Because the true ending is, here, Sakura gets her happy ending. yay, and I'm like, yeah, how many fucking people had to die for that? Like, I get it. I like the idea of Shiro saying, I can't just save... I love the idea of Shiro saying, I'm not just going to save people for the sake of saving people. I want to save the person I want to. I know it comes at the cost of other people, but I don't care. I have to save her. I think that's really interesting. I think that really works. But so many people die for her, man. You're like, I think that's kind of fucked. For her to have such an unambiguously happy ending, especially for a route like Heaven's Feel, compared to the, like, neutral ending, the good ending, whatever, which is so bittersweet, and I feel like it's way more satisfying to me. I feel like it fits the tone. I feel like this is a really interesting ending for Sakura, and I actually really like it. And there's the fact that, how does it end for Shiro? He saved the woman he loved, and he saved his sister. That is a good ending for Shiro. I really fuck with it. If I liked the main heroine more, or I don't know, at all, this would definitely be a contender for double S overall. It might knock Unlimited Blade Works off. It would give it a stronger run for its money. But at the same time, I'm like, everything else is so good. I might like it more than UBW anyways. It's kind of a coin flip. But I feel like while UBW has some things I don't care for as much, the problem I have here is such a major problem. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say, like, yeah, I'm going to put it in A because it's lower. Like, no, to me, these two are, like, very neck and neck. But, man, I just wish I liked Sakura. Moving on to Monster! I mean, I've made a 4-hour video talking about Seacats and how much I loved it. And how much I loved the story and the themes, and how the themes of the story kept changing, and not in a way where I'm like, they have no idea what they're fucking doing, but in a way where I'm like, oh my god, this keeps getting way more interesting, and oh, the story's really about this, oh no, it's really about this, and it's a fucking onion that has so many layers to it, and every layer is just something better. And then after that, I like barely talked about the characters in that video, because I intended on doing a tier list with Clay, and we did, and it was what, like 4 hours? Probably longer than that. I've spent so much time talking about Seacats and why it's great. I've said this in my other tier list videos for my everything tier list series. I wanted everything in one tier list, and Tiermaker didn't let me do it, and that sucks. But I was going to have a triple S. This is the best thing in 2023. The double S is like, here's the best reading shit, best VN, best book, best Symphogear season, etc., etc., etc. But now we crown the king, and it was this. Seacats is my triple S. It is my favorite work of fiction, my favorite piece of media that I consumed in 2023, and it is genuinely one of my favorite works of fiction of all time. I finished it and was saying to myself, is this my new number one? Does this finally truly unseat Madoka Magica? I don't think it does. But regardless, that's just more like, Madoka is so fucking tenured at this point as like, this is my number one shit, that I don't think anything can beat it. But Seacats made me think about it. Because it is a story where everything works. I love the cast. I love the setting. I'll be honest, I think I do like Hinamizawa more than Rokkenjima, but I still like Rokkenjima. I love the plot. I love the mystery. I love the themes. I love the insanity. I read the VN, and the sound effects are great. The voice acting is great. The music is great. I read the question arc, not the question arc, excuse me, the answer arcs in the manga, and the expressions are great. The artwork is great. This can do no wrong. All it needs is an anime adaptation. I would love a Seacats adaptation. It's a damn pity that there isn't one. Ugh. Sorry, I just finished the water bottle, so you might have just heard me like crinkle it and crumple it. I love it, man. I love it so much. Monster. I haven't said a whole lot about Monster. I, at one point, was thinking about doing a video, and then I just didn't. A good reason for that is, I mean, I don't know if it's a good reason, but the reason I didn't was I just did not take notes while I was reading it. Not because I thought to myself, boy, there's nothing to take notes on. There's a lot. It was mostly just, there's a lot to read. I just kind of want to go through it. And I really didn't want to stop my progress or momentum to take notes. Monster is great. I think it's really interesting. I don't want to say it. I love the main theme of Monster. At least what I kind of take to be the main theme of Monster. Which is all about regret. And how people live their lives with regrets. It might be something that you did. It might be something that you didn't do. And how that changes us. And how it changes the way we live. For a lot of characters in Monster, they do really... They're characters that do some really bad things. Like, they've got some skeletons in their closet. They have some demons that they struggle with. And it's watching them struggle with those demons. And, I don't know, fight the skeletons in their closet. I don't know. I might have kind of fucked up the metaphor there. As much as I love Tenma and Tenma's story, I was just as engrossed in other people's stories. Is it Grimer or Grimmer? I read it, so I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce everybody's names, but, like, Grimmer is a character I thought was really interesting. Fucking Ava is a character I thought I was gonna hate, and I very early did, and as the story goes on, I'm like, no, you're super fucking interesting, actually. What was that guy's name? Martin? Martin only has a few chapters, and I'm like, dude, this guy's great. Holy shit, I love his story. I don't remember the name of the private investigator, but the dude who was like, he was struggling with his alcohol addiction. He was trying to get back into, like, the life of his ex-wife and his daughter. I was like, this is so interesting. Like, I feel like I haven't seen Tenma in a while, and I don't care. Not because I don't like Tenma. Tenma's great. I think Tenma is such a good character. He's such a great protagonist for what Monster is. But everyone that gets focus is so interesting. Man! Man! Did I not read trash this year? Come on! How is everything good? This is trashy as hell, but it's still so genuinely good. I'll talk about Worm for a bit. Now, sorry if you heard that. This is the plastic cap of the water bottle. And I have this bad habit where I always just put the plastic in my mouth and I just start chewing it. I've always liked chewing on plastic since I was a kid. I have toys, man, where you can... it's like part of the toy is just super chewed up. I know I have this one Hercules somewhere where for whatever reason I chewed the shit out of his elbow. It looks bad. It looks fucked up. So anyways, if you hear that other, like, crunchy, crinkly sound, it's probably me chewing on some plastic. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Worm. I have not finished it. I am on part 6 of 31. So this is me just talking about parts 1 through 5. Spoiler alert. Okay, so I will say, it's not finished, but I haven't dropped it. So it's not like it would go in the Snoop Dogg tier because of that. It is in progress. it's not gonna go up here. We're gonna break the streak. Fate, you are not alone in being the only thing to not go this high. I think I would probably put it in B as well. I don't think I would quite put it in A tier. And I think part of that is less because I haven't enjoyed parts 1 through 5, but partly because, I'm on part 6, and so far I haven't loved part 6. I actually haven't read it in a couple days, and I'm like, I know that these are teenagers, so they're gonna do dumb shit, but this was really fucking stupid. And now Taylor's getting a little too self-righteous, and I'm not really caring for that. I gotta get back onto it. Hopefully I'll get back onto it in the next couple days or so when I keep working on some moving stuff. But I don't want to put it quite in A yet, because like I know there's a long way to go. And maybe as it keeps going, it'll go here, it'll go here, it'll go here. It could maybe go here, here, lower, or maybe I'll put it here at some point if I just decide I don't really like it. I am still liking it because I love superhero shit. I love powers, power systems, and power scaling. So I can't wait to see Public Domain Popeye and all the crazy shit that's going to happen with him. I love it. I love characters talking about not only how does your power work, but its limitations, the way you can beat somebody with this power, the clever ways they can do cool shit with their powers. It's so fun. It's so interesting. I think there is some interesting character stuff. Like, I think Taylor is... to me, Taylor is a very interesting character. She's very sympathetic in what she's gone through. And she's made some interesting decisions. Like, I was talking to my friend, who's the guy that got me into Worm, because he fucking loves it. He's like, something you're going to learn about Taylor is she has 2 powers. Number 1 is controlling bugs. Power number 2 is she is really, really great at making terrible decisions. And I kind of love that. I know I said earlier, I was like, you guys are making some really dumb decisions, and I didn't like that because it depends on the context. Like, I'm sorry, this was just really fucking stupid. But I think it's an interesting dichotomy for the character. Like, here's someone who is intelligent and careful, but can also just do really dumb, reckless shit. I don't want to put it too high yet. I don't want to put it too low yet. But it is something I am genuinely enjoying, and I'm glad that I started. This is going to go here. I'm not even really going to entertain it here because I just did not read much Onikakushi. I've watched the anime of Higurashi. It is an all-time favorite of mine. I adore it. And so I was really interested in checking out the VN. And I was reading it for a bit. And it's very slow to start. And I was kind of slowly getting into it. And part of it is also, I know this story. I know, like, with Seacats, there's a lot of shit that's written by the same person, if you don't know, by Ryukishi7. And I can't wait for his Silent Hill game, because, like, dude, this is a Silent Hill that basically takes place in Hinabizawa. Oh, that's gonna be fucked. Fuck. I lost my place. I brought up Silent Hill Silent Hill F, and I completely forgot where I was. The thing I was trying to say is with Seacats, there was a lot of information that I had, but also a lot of information that I didn't have, and I didn't know, even the stuff that I knew, I didn't exactly know how it fit into the larger narrative and the larger mysteries. With this, I do know a lot of that stuff, which makes it a little less engrossing for me to read, and I know what a lot of the scares are, which also makes it a little less engrossing to read. The story is still great. The characters are still great. I'm at least assuming they are. But I was reading it for a bit, and then I just kind of stopped. But I do want to get back on at some point, because I love Higurashi. I think I'm going to read Psychonia first, because I know almost nothing about Psychonia. And I'm very excited to go back into like something Ryukishi completely blind. But I would say this is in the Snoop Dogg tier, unfortunately. But hopefully, I can read more of it and finish it, and it can go where it belongs, because Higurashi is fucking great. Muv-Luv Unlimited, the day after. As you may or may not know, hypothetical audience member, I fucking adore Muv-Luv. Muv-Luv Extra is some over-the-top, cringy shit, and I hated it. And the more I read it, I was like, fuck, it's working. I'm kind of getting into the main routes and the promised childhood declaration of love thing and the girl next door. Like, I eat this shit up. I just kind of love it. I hate these people, but they're growing on me. It's like when I was watching Clannad. They're benign tumors. They're growing on me, and it's not hurting me that they are. They just kind of are. Then I got to reading Muv-Luv Unlimited. I was like, oh, this is great. This is really interesting, actually. What the fuck is going on? I can't wait to read more. And boy, it's hard to talk about Alternative. Alternative broke my heart. It broke my soul. There is a scene I have watched multiple times, and I've cried every time I've gotten to it. I watched Clay read quite a bit of Alternative, and I cried at a lot more scenes, because I was like, I know where this is going now, and that makes this really hard to watch. It's phenomenal. I cannot recommend the Muv-Luv Trilogy enough. I cannot emphasize how great it is. I would put the original Muv-Luv Trilogy in the same tier as Fate, in the same tier as Seacats. Please read it if you have the chance. The Day After is fine. I like it. It doesn't hit the same. It is also not yet finished, and I can say that. Like, again, looking at Muv-Luv, Extra and Unlimited, which come as a package deal, it's good. I like them. I would probably put them in like an A tier or a B tier. It's Alternative that brings it all home and brings it all together and makes it like a double S tier thing. We don't have the final episode of The Day After yet. They said it is going to be Muv-Luv Resonative, I believe. I don't know when that is coming out. I know they said it's coming out before Integrate, which is Muv-Luv 4. And the fact that there is a main canonical fourth Muv-Luv fucking terrifies me. I don't think my soul can take it anymore. But until this is finished, and again, like, I finished it, so I can't put it here in Snoop Dogg, but I feel like I would probably put it here kind of with Worm for similar reasons. I liked it. I genuinely enjoyed it. I don't think I quite loved it, although there may be scenes here and there that I loved. And even some of the parts of it that I really got into are less on its own merits, although, again, some of the shit on its own merits is good. But when it's using scenes or characters or music from the original trilogy, and I'm like, this is reminding me of something phenomenal, and it's making, some of that emotion is bleeding into this. When Resonative comes out and I read it, then I'll really see how good was The Day After. Is it a worthy follow-up? Is it absolutely fantastic? Does the ending kind of tank it? I don't know. But I do like it. I don't want to kind of give like a definitive rating at this time. I feel like B is pretty fair. The Epic of Gilgamesh. I had never read it before. I listened to a reading of it, and I had a good time with it. I think I was reading it, it was somewhere around Fate. I don't remember if I had finished Heaven's Feel, or if it might have been after UBW. I was like, fuck it, I'm going to read the Epic of Gilgamesh now, and no one can stop me. It's like one of the oldest stories, if not the oldest story of all time. It's about the oldest bromance of all time between Gil and Enkidu. It is about strong-walled Uruk, one of the OG cities. You know what? I'm gonna put it in A tier, and no one can stop me. For me, it's not an S tier. Did I enjoy the Epic of Gilgamesh as much as I enjoyed Monster? No. as much as I enjoyed Class of '09, I'm sorry, there's something to be really funny about saying, like, yeah, the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's a classic. It's really good. It ain't no Class of '09, but it is what it is. I don't really have much else to say about it. It is a classic. I would recommend reading it and checking it out. I think it's a good and interesting story. Then we get to Dune. When I look at this list, including Mistborn down here, the ones that stick out to me the most as like bucket list items. Finally reading Seacats, finally reading Fate, finally reading House of Leaves, Monster. Dune stands among them and possibly above them as something that I had been meaning to read and was big on my list. It is considered one of the greatest, most influential, etc., works of science fiction of all time. And from reading the novel, I get it. I loved Arrakis. I loved the culture of Arrakis, the setting of Arrakis, just the life on this planet, how it interacted. But I also loved other shit about the world, like how magic works. And it's not quite magic, but it's kind of basically magic. And not in the RWBY way where I'm like, a semblance is fucking magic. Stop trying to pretend that it's not. It's bothering me. I'm like, no, this is not really magic. But then you get, like, the shit with Aaliyah and the water, and you're like, that's magic. This is kind of wild, interesting shit. I think the kind of political maneuverings of the Atreides family and the Harkonnen family in the early parts of the book are really interesting. I like how it's the Harkonnen set a trap, and the Atreides family know we are walking into a trap. But we're not stupid. We know the Harkonnens. We know the kind of shit that they'll have planned, but we think the risk is worth it. And you get to see both sides, making their moves and shit. I love it. When Paul and Jessica are living with the Fremen, I'm not 100%. There's not two E's, so I think it's Fre, not Free. And getting to learn their culture and becoming more ingratiated with them. And you're like, I was a friend of Janice and all that shit. I loved it. My biggest problem with Dune is just, it's like, while I liked the story and the characters and was invested and wanted to know what was going to happen, I felt like I was rarely on the edge of my seat. And possibly that's because I watched the movie. So the first half, third-ish of the book, I pretty much knew everything that was going on was going to happen. Part of it, I think, is the pacing in the latter parts of the book, where there's quite a few time skips. I still enjoyed it. And it's not just like it's this great work of fiction, but it's okay. Like, I genuinely enjoyed it. But I don't think I enjoyed reading Dune as much as I enjoyed reading something like House of Leaves. So I am going to leave Dune in the A tier. Then we get the Mistborn Trilogy. Final Empire, Well of Ascension, Hero of Ages. Final Empire might be one of my favorite books of all time. I love heists. I talked about it in, I think it was the third Worm book. I talked about how excited I was that there was a heist. I talked about it in the Mistborn video. I maybe mentioned it elsewhere on the channel, but I am just a sucker for heists and planning heists. Like, shit like Ocean's 11, I eat it up. Last year, for our D&D campaign, we had this, it was Pathfinder technically, but for our tabletop campaign, we got to plan and execute a heist. And like all heists, the planning stage was super hype. It was really fun. A lot of the earlier parts were going super well. Then there's a part where everything went to shit, and we just had to make it work. It was wonderful. And Mistborn captures all of that. The planning is great. Gathering the crew is great. Executing the plan is great. Everything goes to shit, and it's great. And when it does, you get to see not only them adapting, but also the parts of the plan that completely went to shit actually went exactly according to plan, just like shit in Ocean's 11. I love Kelsier. I love Vin. I love just kind of the interactions that they have and how they are two sides of the same coin. Here is the more experienced mentor character. Here is the character who, not just in a sense of like, oh yeah, it's a mentor and the apprentice, like whatever, but it's, I don't want to say it. I think what I loved was seeing the dichotomy of, here's the dude that knows how to use his powers and loves his powers. And here's the person who is learning them and is still kind of scared of them. Here's the person who loves being in a crowd, loves being the face of a group, and the person who just wants to slink in the shadows at all times. And I feel like knowing both of these characters, they make a lot of sense, and I feel like they interact off each other very well, and they both learn things from each other. I like that a lot. I love the cast. I think the climax is great. I've said it before, and I won't go full into spoilers, but the full introduction of the Lord Ruler, I think, is one of the single greatest entrances to a villain I have ever seen in any work of fiction across any media. It goes so hard, like some crazy WWE shit, and I love it. This is such an easy S tier with how much I liked the book. The Well of Ascension is a book I enjoyed quite a bit, but there are some buts to it. Partly it wasn't the book I expected it to be. I was like, okay, there's going to be a lot of politics from the fallout of the first book. There's going to be some battle strategies, some negotiations, backroom deals, all that good shit. And you know what? I'm always up for that. That sounds like a good time. I also thought there was going to be more exploration of the rest of the world and not just Luthadel and maybe a little bit of the surrounding area. And I was really looking forward to it, and it just didn't happen. Once I realized that it wasn't going to happen, I made my peace with it and was able to enjoy the book for what it actually is. But there's still some issues I have. Like Zane. I don't like Zane. I kind of hated everything about this fucking character. And I didn't like the ending. There were just, I think part of it was the pacing of it. Part of it was just like the end game reveals and shit that happened. I was like, hey, we're doing this? Okay, are you sure? Okay, I guess we're doing this. And I just didn't love it. I can't put it up here. I did not like it as much as the first book. And then the ending set in. I think I would put it in A, because I did really genuinely enjoy most of the book. But there really were some problems. But I feel like the problems are what keeps it from up here, less than here. You know what? I'll move this up. I feel like I could say I probably liked this about as much as maybe a little bit more, but I think it bothers me a bit more than the Fate route. If I want this up here, I think the Fate route goes up here too. Hero of Ages I didn't finish, and I didn't want to finish. And a lot of that is because the ending of Hero of Ages, or excuse me, Well of Ascension. I got the exploration that I wanted, so I guess there's some monkey's paw shit there. But because it's following the ending of book 2, as you know, a third book should, which I didn't like, I wasn't invested in the direction of where it was going. And I tried. I was like, there is some interesting shit here, and maybe here, and I haven't read this in weeks. I feel bad that I haven't read it. but I mostly feel bad because it means I haven't moved on to the next project. I either need to read this or I need to move on. And then I tried to get back into reading it, and I just couldn't. So I made the decision to move on, and I didn't really look back. So that's the reading tier list, and yeah, I really didn't use the C or the D tier. It's kind of weird. And even here, it's like, do I want to move anything up? Do I really want to keep Class of 09 and F? Yeah, I do. I loved it. I loved this, and this, and this. I think this for sure. I feel like this feels right. It feels about right. So we're going to end this one here. The last one is going to be the movie section of the everything tier list. I don't think I'm going to do that tonight. Hopefully sometime tomorrow or later this week. I do want to get it done before Thursday. I don't know if I'll get them all uploaded before Thursday because timestamps, and that's going to take a while. But I will leave this one here, and regardless of what day this comes out or what day you hypothetically watch it, I hope you have a good one.